All right, hey everyone, I'm going to be doing the first of what I think I'm just going to call walking talks. The first thing I actually want to talk about is the benefits of walking, which I think would make a very boring video if that's all I was talking about. In terms of like me losing weight and the most effective thing I've had for changing my body composition. We're always surprised when I just say walking is the most effective thing that I've been able to do. Why would it not be, you know? If you look at running, it's obviously something that people espouse as being great for your heart, your stamina, etc. But then we think of walking, which is a very, very similar activity, and we somehow don't think that that's going to have very similar effects. But one of the first things that turned me on to walking was actually reading about Stan Efferding's vertical diet. For those of you who don't know, Stan Efferding was a pretty accomplished bodybuilder and powerlifter for a number of years. He was able to put on a lot of size while maintaining pretty lean body mass. Obviously, these people are using a lot of exogenous hormones, but even compared to a lot of other bodybuilders, he was just noticeably more athletic, a lot leaner in order to kind of achieve these levels. And so, besides the actual diet itself, which I don't want to go into, I'd recommend just buying it. But one of the things I remember he talks about is taking a walk after every meal. And it should be so obvious, right? Like, we eat these meals and then we get sedentary. And what are we doing? We're just signaling to our body to store this energy. And, how are we storing that? We're storing it with an insulin spike. We're shelling it to our body fat. We're not moving it to the places we need, like our glycogen stores. We're not doing anything to signal our body, right? I'm just talking about 10-minute walks a day and doing several a day, so you're accumulating a decent amount of volume. So for most people, it's almost one of the lowest intensity forms of exercise you can get. I mean, you walk every day, right? So the idea of adding 10, 20, 30 minutes of intentional walking in a day is really not that much to ask, but it accumulates to, 2.5, 3 hours a week pretty quickly. Recently in vogue is kind of this zone 2 training where you're basically just upping your heart rate just a little bit. And really, walking on a treadmill in an incline or walking in a hilly area, hiking, you can easily get into that zone for hours and just build a lot of your basic aerobic capacity without a lot of impact, without really cutting into your fatigue that much. Your calves might be a little sore if you're a bigger person. We talk about work capacity all the time. It's a big trendy thing. But I don't think people realize that, not everything about building that endurance capacity requires this extreme strenuous effort. A lot of it is just building the basis of, recovering between sets. How are you breathing? How can you handle exercise volume in general? You have to spend more time than you would probably have to spend running to get similar benefits. But that's something you can do every single day. I don't know a lot of people who can just go on an intense run every single day. It's just not realistic. It's a lot of impact on your ankles and your body. With these low intensity activities, you're still burning calories. You're still not at rest. And so that's something really beneficial as well. For anyone who's been in a pretty harsh caloric deficit, you know that your recovery capacity for exercise in general, it starts dropping pretty quickly, and it just keeps dropping until, especially at that end stage, you're really just in that kind of the gut. You're just gutting it out. It's pretty miserable at that point. And you really can't handle this high intensity exercise that much, And the exercise that you can handle, things like doing just enough work to maintain your muscle mass, is really where you should be prioritizing time. So a great example of this for body composition is, if you look at professional bodybuilders, pretty much anybody who's doing harsh prep for a show, you'll notice that the bulk of their cardio is just really low intensity. And yet they come in with these extremely low body fat percentages. And I'm not recommending anybody get to that level. That's not, healthy for daily life. But the point is, they're able to use this really low intensity cardio, still get into that deficit, have just enough energy to eke out for other things, like the other exercises that are really their priorities. And we're also just are building enough stamina that they can handle the volume. Most of the things that high level athletes are doing in terms of performance enhancement, whether that's, the chemical route, sleep, whatever, they're really just trying to increase their capacity to do work just a little bit. Even if it's a 5% difference, that's 5% that they can use to outwork everybody else, right? there's kind of just an obvious benefit for pretty much everybody. So, I mean, God, you look at these walking clubs that people do where they're just walking. That's all they're doing, like, for their exercise. And they're still having huge increases, huge improvements in their body composition, huge improvements in their aerobic capacity and their endurance and their vascularity in their legs. I remember my favorite example of the power of walking was, I was in my freshman year of college. There's the infamous freshman 15, which is very real. A lot of college students discover fried food and beer at the same time. They're away from home, they're under stress, they eat like crap because they're 17, 18, 19 years old and nobody's telling them to do any better. It wasn't like I was eating much better than everybody else, but I lived on the 4th floor of the building, and our staircase was a little bit faster than the elevator. And by the end of the semester, you could easily tell who was living on the 3rd and 4th floor and taking the staircases versus who wasn't. Just in terms of their body composition, their energy, like you could just visibly see this. And this wasn't structured exercise. This is like just going up the staircase a few times a day, right? I was able to, walk away with much better body composition than most of the other people, even while eating this crappy food, even while under stress. The only difference was I was walking a little bit more than they were. So besides that, I've just been thinking a lot about the YouTube channel. In terms of absolute numbers, it's not like I have something incredible. Like as of this moment, I think I have 206 subscribers as of this morning. That's really nothing in the big sea of things. But in terms of just the growth of the channel, I mean, I really started posting exercise videos about 3 months ago, mostly as a way to hold myself accountable. And so I've just been shocked at getting any traction at all. But yeah, I asked a few of my friends to kind of look at my videos just to get a bit of a third-party perspective, because it's hard to look at yourself objectively and think, oh, this is why this is working, or this is why people have responded to it. Obviously, a lot of this I'm just beholden to algorithms that I really don't understand, and I don't think I ever will. But there has to be a human element to it, right, that I can understand, I can interpret through that lens. And so one of my friends says to me, well, you look like you're tired, and you look like you're having a hard time. And at first I was like, okay, well, that's not exactly flattering praise. And he's like, no, that's probably what people like, is that you're actually relatable to their daily life, On top of that, you get just the curse of social media, where the whole experience is curated. You're not even seeing these people on their bad days, You're seeing the best of the best in this super well edited version of the best set of something that they might have failed at 10 times. There is something to be said for like, wow, this person put off this amazing thing, I follow a lot of calisthenics channels, obviously, and I look at them and I think, this is unbelievable. I can't even imagine how you got to this point. And that's really impressive, and sometimes that inspires me, but sometimes I just want to see somebody gutting it out. Most of the time, that to me is more inspiring, especially as I get older, life gets more complicated. There's a difference between just engagement, like, oh, this thing is awesome, and like, oh, I really respond to this person. I think social media can become this really competitive space where you used to be competing with everyone in the gym, but now you're competing with 1,000 people on the internet who have, better genetics than you, better nutrition, better coaching, whatever. And they may be struggling too, but they're not even showing you that. So how are you supposed to know that they're not just these perfect people, right? I think part of the impetus of starting this channel was just, I'm sort of tired of that competitiveness. I'm tired of, like, I guess the false narratives that creates, the kind of the body dysmorphia, the negativity, really. I hate all that stuff. And I just kind of want to be like, hey, I've been training for a long time. I'm kind of obsessed with it. This is like my passion. It's my hobby. I think everybody has something to share, like, as much as I don't really train in gyms anymore, I did really appreciate gyms as a formative experience, because I'm a pretty social person, and I found that the most knowledge I got was just talking to people. Almost everything I've learned that is kind of a unique insight, like some quick tip, just some slight modification. It's not coming from the internet, it's not coming from a scientific article. it's coming from just a conversation with people. But I guess I want to see if there's any potential where this channel keeps growing. I want to, I guess, build a community aspect where it's not about competing, it's about sharing information, it's about cheering each other on, it's about kind of embracing the sucky parts of it. You know, I've started looking at YouTube fitness differently in terms of my own consumption. I started kind of seeking out people that I want to emulate. There's something about the way they present themselves, or, you know, their work ethic, the things they're capable of, their ideas, that I just am like, this is somebody who's worth, like, emulating in some way, you know. I'm not trying to steal everything, I'm just trying to take bits and pieces and integrate that into my own ideas, you know. But suddenly it's just way more positive. It's like, you know, the algorithm ties into that too, of like, you get in what you put out. If you're just following these me, I'm the best influencer ever, in it for the clout types, then that's like all you're going to see. And I've just been kind of pleasantly surprised how many positive influencers there are out there, and how many people I think are really feeling a similar way of like, this toxicity has gone too far and we need to think more long term about how we engage in our world, you know, because the internet and the world are not two separate things, and we know that now. Obviously the internet affects the world, it affects how people think, what they believe, how they feel about themselves. There's a responsibility in that I think previously people have been dismissive of, but now it's kind of undeniable. Even somebody like me, if some teenager comments on my thing and I just am dismissive of their idea and I just shout them down, then like, how am I helping anybody, you know? Like, that's a learning moment for somebody, and I've just completely shut that down. I'm wrapping up my walk and wrapping up my thoughts. Hope this makes any sense.